Buckle up. You're about to hear something you won't forget.
1, 2, 3, 4.
If you wish to understand the secrets of the universe, think.
This isn't your typical small talk. This is Lyft talk.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing.
Ever had such a good conversation you didn't want the ride to end?
In terms of energy, frequency,
From the streets of Denver to your ears, welcome to the conversations that only happen in a Lyft.
and vibration.
3 years ago, I quit my comfortable, well-paying job in tech. Although the money was great, I couldn't shake the feeling I was meant to be somewhere else. Eventually, I found myself out of money. Needing quick cash, I started driving for the rideshare app Lyft. I'm Sean McMahon, and you're listening to Lyft Talk.
Hi there. For those of you new to the show, welcome. I hope you had a wonderful holiday. To those returning, welcome. You've probably noticed I've taken a number of weeks off. I've been thinking a lot. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Mine was filled with reflection and emotional turmoil and processing and family and all the wonderful stuff that that holidays seem to bring, both good and bad. But it's gotten me thinking a lot about this podcast, about what I'm doing in my life in general, and what the point of this is. And I say this because up until now, all of my guests... Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Let's get some music on. There we go. Nothing too fancy. Just two chords to kind of give us some background music. There. I think that's relaxing. Very nice. Where was I? Oh, yes. Those of you who have listened to the show before, you might notice this is a little different. There are no riders. There's no one else talking. There's no background noise or loud cabin or car music, mostly because I'm in my apartment and I'm recording this. You see, I think I'm done with Lyft. At least I'm hoping I will be done. You see, I think I'm done with Lyft as quickly as possible. I will need to work a little bit more, I think, for them, just to pay rent, before I can get another job. But something happened last week that I think is worth sharing. A grown man in his late 50s puked in my car at about 10:30 on a Thursday night. And why this is relevant, besides giving you all graphic images, hopefully not before you eat breakfast. Apologies. Should have issued a explicit warning there. Why this is relevant is because I promised myself 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, next month, that when I first started lifting, if anyone ever puked in my car, I would call it. The gig was up. And in 1 week, 2 people puked in my car. Both my 4-year-old, which he can't really be faulted for. Ironically, he had more control than the 50-plus-year-old who puked everywhere and still kind of frankly smells like him. Gross. Yes, very unappetizing. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot over this holiday season and given recent events, how I want to end this podcast, how I want to wrap it up, and how I want to share. And I guess I want to tell a story this week. First of all, I'm not going to make any promises. I have no idea how many episodes this is going to be. I have no idea if I'm just going to ramble for 10 minutes or if I'm going to drop some sort of wisdom. But I hope to share my experiences with people if it can benefit them. And I guess also, I'm kind of recording this for me is because maybe in 10 years when I've made it onto my next thing and figured out whatever I want to do for the next 10 years of my life, I'll look back on this night when I started this recording and remember what it felt like to be here and now. I live near Sloan's Lake in Denver, if anyone knows where that is, in between Colfax and Sloan's. The lake itself, which is essentially the colliding of two worlds, which is essentially what our story is about today. It started about a year ago. It was right after the presidential election here in the United States. And don't worry, we're not going to get into politics. But a buddy of mine and I had not seen each other for a couple weeks, which at that point was rare. And we sat down for pizza, and one of the first things out of my mouth was I felt compelled to apologize. After the election, I did not apologize. I did not check in on him. I did not see how he was doing. And so I started the apology from a very genuine place. I just said, I knew you probably took the election hard. And, now that we're sitting here, it's dawned on me I should have checked on you. And I dropped the ball, and I'm sorry I didn't check on you. And he rambled on for about 2 minutes, and then at the end admitted, yeah, you should have checked on me, dude. That night we ended up getting in an argument. Not an argument, we ended up getting in a debate. And it got pretty heated at one point that the waiter kept coming by to see if we were okay. He wasn't really shuffling us out, but you could tell the guy was uneasy. We're still friends to this day, right? But it was one of the pivotal moments in our relationship where we were locked against each other. There was no easy joke to get out of it. No laugh or another round of beer that could just quell any of the concerns on the table. We had disagreements on which side of the table we were on. And I'm not talking politically, I think quite candidly, we were on different sides of the table in terms of the state of the world. And one of the main topics we talked about was education. And I don't mean, the large topic education. I just mean, were me and him sitting at that table educating. And he explained he has a sister who's a single mom, and his entire family is Mexican. And for those of you who don't know, I'm white. And that's relevant in this story because certain communities took the presidential election particularly hard compared to others. Need I say more? So his sister particularly took it really hard, and he was explaining her position and that his entire family, or a lot of his family, felt that there was a huge population of America that were misinformed and incredibly uneducated on the issues of today and the issues that mattered. And I'm not taking political sides. I'm not saying he's right or I'm right. I'm sure you listening to this are probably on one of the two sides of the spectrum right now, and you're probably on the third, which is the one of sense, and you're wondering what the other two sides are even fucking doing. But we won't digress into that. The reason I'm sharing this story is because he got me thinking that night about education. And I find myself to be reasonably educated. I assume I'm very well read. I don't know if these are well-founded opinions, but they're certainly opinions I hold dearly, and I pride myself on. In any case, it got me wondering that night if I was the one he was talking about. If me, not some, obtuse, abstract person in the world, was uneducated, but if I, his friend, sitting across from him, was uneducated. At that time, I hadn't even been driving Lyft for a year. Now I've driven it for almost 2 years. And in that time, I've met a little more than 51, I think I'm coming up on 5,200 strangers. Two of them I've already recorded and sat down with for the show. But I'm not sure if I'll make episodes about it. I'm still trying to figure out what the show is about, for lack of a better term, which I guess is why I'm airing my grievances here, or maybe just talking to myself. I don't know where to start. When you first start Lyft, you have no cred, right? You have very few rides. And so what I've noticed, and please Lyft, don't sue me, but what I've noticed is you probably get a certain clientele that more acclaimed, more established riders don't get. For example, I think my first week on the job, I picked up people from the correctional facility or fresh out of prison about 7 times. I'm a 6 foot tall white guy. If they're not going to send me, who are they going to send? And I met a lot of ex-felons, and I guess I want to tell you about one today. We'll call him Derek. I don't remember what his real name was, but I'll never forget his story. He got in. He was 2 years younger than me at the time, and he told me what he was in jail for, which we'll get to in a second. And then he told me that he'd essentially been locked up in jail for about the last 20 years, and that he'd been out for about two months now, and he was just coming from a doctor's appointment, and he was going home. And he had been stabbed over 256 times in prison, and he was forever on public disability, meaning even though he was living in a halfway house for ex-felons, the government would basically give him $55,000 a year for life, partially because he was so disabled from so many stabbings that he'd never be able to hold a regular job again. He told me, before he admitted what he did, and explained it, and I'm telling you merely, right, I don't know his name, I can't fact check, I'm just merely telling you the rumor I heard on the road. He told me he was at a bus stop a couple months prior, and he was sitting there waiting when he noticed a young man who looked maybe a little older than him roll up in a wheelchair, missing both legs. As most of us do, right? He tried not to stare, but he found himself oddly curious, almost like something was familiar about the gentleman. Taking a stab in the dark, he reached out and said, "Oscar," and the man turned. Oscar was with him the night he was picked up. They used to be best friends when they were 16. It wasn't until he talked to Oscar and had coffee with him later that day that he realized his story was the better of the two. Oscar, his friend in the wheelchair, did not get picked up the night he did by the cops. Instead, 2 weeks later, Oscar met some kids at the train tracks to buy some drugs. Instead of selling him drugs, they mugged him, took his money, beat him, and left him for dead on the train tracks, which is where he lost his 2 legs. The man in my backseat, Derek, stared at me in silence. For about 5 seconds. I tell you, it felt like 20. And he said that was the minute I realized my life was the better one. Me getting locked up was a gift. The man who'd been stabbed 256 times was saying him in jail was a gift. Now this is when we get into prison lingo or prison rules. So if you're listening with your kids, I'm not going to weigh in on how you run your life, but you should probably turn it off by now. He explained what happened. He was 16 and he was dating a 12-year-old. Her mom called the cops, did not like the situation. The cops arrested him and asked him, did he have sex with that girl? He said yes. He was 16. He did not know it was illegal, he said. And a peculiar thing happened. According to his story, he was sent to jail as an adult. They did not try him as a minor, even though he was 17 and a half in court. They tried him as an adult. Derek, on his 18th birthday, was in federal penitentiary with a bunch of cold, hard convicts as an 18-year-old kid with, you guessed it, a child molestation charge. The first week, you're supposed to show your papers. Now, outside of jail, we think there are these race wars going on, or we're not sure. The Bloods, I don't know, not the Bloods. I'm obviously not a gangster, clearly. But there are race gangs in prison. And the ex-cons that I've talked to and spoken with have shared that it really has not a lot to do with racial hate or anything. It's just how they organize, right? If you're white, you're in the white gang. If you're black, you're in the black gang. If you're Mexican, you're with the Mexicans. And it's just a way for them to organize and stay managed. I had a white supremacy guy who said some of his best friends were black. So anyway, he was also in the pen for 30 plus years. Very interesting character. Maybe we'll cover his story next. Anyway, back to Derek. Derek, his first week, was approached by a man. We'll call him Frank. Frank asked him if he could see his papers. Now, I wasn't aware of this until I was told. But according to Derek and a few other of the felons I've talked to, you're allowed papers in prison, which basically explain why you're there. You know, who you are, why you're there, what privileges you have, etc. Right? Think of them like a passport or a school ID, right? Just for a federal penitentiary. They essentially identify you. And his papers explained what his charges were. And Frank came up to him, asked to see his papers, and basically explained the rules. And the rules are, essentially, if you don't have 3 types of charges on your papers, you get protection from the gang. You get welcomed into the gang, you get protected, and life basically goes on. You find work, you find a job, and prison life continues. And hopefully you bide your time, stay alive, and get out. By the second week, Frank gave one final warning. Day 9. Frank goes, "Kid, dude, tomorrow's day 10. You either gotta show me your papers, or I gotta say it's open season. Like, this is my last attempt, kiddo." Now, of course, this was just Frank trying to be nice. Frank knew that if an 18-year-old kid did not already share his papers by day 9, day 10 wasn't going to be any different. Day 10 is when it started. First time he was stabbed, he was in the showers. They got his spleen. To this day, his spleen leaks. You see, this is another interesting thing that I learned in talking to prison ex-cons, those who've been those who've been living in a prison, is that prison doctors' healthcare is not meant to really make you well. It's to ensure you don't die. So a lot of the fixes and things they suture and solve are not really meant to fix it, right? They patch you up and send you back into the fray. This was Derek's story. One of the lessons I learned from this was, outside of him dating, his whole general story there, it was that a 16-year-old kid didn't know he was admitting to a felony when the cop innocently asked him, "Did you have sex with that girl?" It's made me think a lot about how many kids just don't know what they should and should not say to police officers. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't commit a crime, and it's not wrong. I'm not taking a position on the topic. I'm just going back to me and my buddy in that pizza parlor talking about how uneducated we were. Or, as my buddy was trying to point out, how uneducated maybe what he thought most of America was. And in meeting Derek, I realized how uneducated I was about a very, I don't want to say large, but a very substantial portion of the United States population. I mean, depending on what kind of community you're in, up to 50% of the males are incarcerated. I mean, that's not a small percentage, people. Anyway, I'm not going to split numbers. I think we all get enough of data and math in our day-to-day. I'm just going to say, I learned a lot by Derek opening up. And you know what was the interesting thing by the time the ride ended? He thanked me. He thanked me for listening. He thanked me for not thinking he was a monster, not automatically judging him, or getting him to be quiet, or giving him the cold shoulder, or pretending like he didn't exist. His words. He thanked me for just giving him attention and letting him tell his story. He'd been out for 3 months, and in that time he told me all about his time in, and he told me how hard it was for him to be back. How life had moved on. For those of you who aren't doing the math, the last 15, 20 years that he was in, or the last, give or take, whatever it was when smartphones came out. He missed smartphones. He's in his mid-30s now, and he completely missed the smartphone revolution. Absolutely wild. I know this was very unconventional, but man, I feel better. I appreciate y'all. To those of you who did listen and stick on, I appreciate you. Maybe I'll see you next week. Thanks.